death. Sentencing has been deferred until September. The former chief financial officer at the Trump Organization, Alan Weisselberg, has pleaded guilty to conspiring with the company in a 15-year tax fraud. The 75-year-old may now be required to testify against the organisation at a criminal trial in October. However, he's not expected to cooperate with a larger probe into Donald Trump himself. The former president has not been charged or accused of any wrongdoing in this case. The mother of Archie Battersby is campaigning for a new law named after her son. Holly Dance is calling for a change to the system regarding end-of-life cases. Archie's family made multiple court appeals to continue his treatment, but he died on the 6th of August after being taken off of life support. Speaking to GBNews for the first time since her son's death, Holly said cases like Archie's take their toll on families.
There's been another baby whose life support was withdrawn 2 days after Archie. There's another case that was in court yesterday. It's the stress placed on us by the system. It's something that's got to change. We've written to the Health Secretary, so moving forward to see what we can change. I think the whole thing that you're rushed into court, that's got to change.
On TV, online and on DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Back now to Dewbs & Co.
Thanks for that, Ray. Is it just me, or do you guys at home, you listen to headlines sometimes and you sit in despair just wondering what on earth is this world turning into? Some depressing things going on at the moment, aren't there? We'll try and make things a little bit more cheery here on Dewbs & Co for the next hour, shall we? Keeping me company until 7 o'clock tonight. My panel, the former advisor to Boris Johnson and now a Tory life peer in the House of Lords, Daniel Moylan, and the former Labour councillor and CEO of PLMR, Kevin Craig. Good evening to both of you. And also, Daniel, you are the former Deputy Chairman of Transport for London as well.
I was Deputy Chairman of Transport for London.
What a treat for us then, because in just a second we'll be getting into the strikes, whether or not, I'm interested in your view as well about whether or not the government should be getting involved in this or not. But you know the drill on Dewbs & Co, don't you, as well? It's not just about us here, it's about you at home as well. What's on your mind tonight? I want your thoughts on all the stories that we'll be covering. Labour Party, strikes, I want to talk about universities, and also whose responsibility is it to help the most vulnerable in society? Get in touch with your thoughts. You can email as per usual. gbviews@gbnews.uk is my email. You can tweet me at gbnews or at Michelle Dewbs. One of my first emails in tonight is from Sue, a viewer there. Sue, I've got to say, never in my life, in my time of doing this job, should I say, have I ever seen so many swear words condensed into one email. And that is saying something. I'm a girl from Hull, and that is, it opened my eyes. So you make a fascinating point, but send it again without the swear words, and I'll read it out, because you actually make quite an interesting point about beaches and water. I look forward to your take too. Jim says, Michelle, strikes. They must always be permitted, he says. There's way too much anti-union sentiment going around and around at the moment. And as for the government, they should keep out of the situation. Alan, he says, Labour are not a credible opposition, nor are they remotely electable with their current bunch of MPs. Gary says, I was once a senior shop steward at a major oil company for over 10 years, and we never needed to strike once over negotiations. Compromise was needed on both sides. Someone else has messaged in saying they like my hair. See, that's the kind of detail we like on Dewbs & Co. Thank you very much. I forgot your name there, so I apologise for that. Right, strikes, as I've just been mentioning, 80% of rail services not running today. More strikes, and I have to say this is not going to be the end of it, because you were just hearing from Mick Lynch there in the bulletin. This is going to go on and on and on and on. The Labour Party, Kevin Craig, do you think they are still the party of the workers? I'm going to cut straight to the chase with this one. Keir Starmer saying he doesn't want his team, his MPs on the picket lines. They don't seem to care less. They're going on there anyway. Are they still a party for the workers at home?
Yeah, Michelle, I think Labour are, but Labour's not just the party of the working class, it's the party of the middle class and the upper classes. And in fact, I don't think the values behind Keir Starmer's leadership belong to any one group in our country. Policies on jobs, education, the environment, healthcare. The working class have a huge interest, I think, in Labour getting back into government. But I think more than ever, Britain's class boundaries are changing, I think. I think the old ideas of tightly defined socioeconomic groups are not what they were. So I think that's quite interesting. But I do think that Keir Starmer, here you have a leader whose dad, as we all might remember, was a toolmaker. He comes from a very working class background, and those values of family, integrity, honesty, hard work, they run right through the guy.
But then why, if that's the case then, so if Labour are the party of the workers, it's the workers that want the pay rise, why aren't Labour MPs allowed on the pickets then? Why aren't Keir Starmer on the pickets?
Well, I think Keir's taken the view that after a few years of chaos at how the Labour Party presented itself, he wanted to clearly distinguish between chaotic years, and he took the view that a government in waiting, as he aspires to be, if the British people give him the chance, shouldn't be on the picket lines. Not everything the Tory government says is wrong. Like Grant Shapps has done this plan about how to sort out what he says, and Daniel, as a transport expert, will have some say on this.
A 16-point plan?
A 16-point plan. Now, not all of that, Michelle, I agree with, but some of it's quite reasonable. You know?
Have you found this 16-point plan?
I went looking, courtesy of the research team at GBNews. I only found snippets.
Well, because this is the peculiar thing. Grant Shapps is indeed referring to a 16-point plan. I've dug long and hard today, I have to say, and I can't find it. He's tweeted it out himself and said, here is my 16-point plan. And it's not there. There's just a load of waffle and sentiment, and there's not a clear 16-point plan. Very confusing. Daniel, you tell me, what do you make of it all?
16 points is too many points in a plan. That's
right.
The first thing I'd say. And that may have dawned on him when he cut it back, I don't know, after he'd announced it. I think Kevin's got this completely wrong. One of the interesting things about the left generally, but the Labour Party certainly in the last 10, 15 years, is they've totally stopped talking about class. They don't talk about class anymore. Analysing society in terms of the upper class, the middle class, the working class. When do you last hear a Labour Party politician do that? They analyse society now in terms of identity, and they're much happier campaigning for oppressed minority groups in terms of their identity than they are for campaigning for majority groups like the working class and people who've got jobs and things like that. And they never even talk about it. So I think Labour has not only abandoned the working class, they've abandoned the whole idea of class, and that skews their... I mean, he's right in one sense. They are the party now of the upper class. They represent Mayfair, they represent Islington. These places vote for Labour, but they don't represent the working class.
They represent women with penises?
They don't recognise that the working class exists or has political relevance anymore.
Right, so, look, can I firstly say, which I think is important in politics, that there are many aspects of Daniel, or Lord Moylan, as he's called when he's at the House of Lords, that I think are hugely admirable, done great things in transport in London. However, the Labour Party says lots of things about class in speeches. Listen to Angela Rayner if you want, full of references to the importance of politics that help the working class and those on the lowest incomes. And Michelle, are we really going there that Labour, you're saying, is the party of women with penises? Is that what we're doing today?
I'll definitely go there, yeah. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. And not only do I think it's ridiculous, I actually think it will cost the Labour Party at the next election, because I think they'll get caught up in the wranglings of minuscule minority groups. Not that I want to be disrespectful to minuscule minority groups, but I think that will be one of the undoings of Labour at the next election.
Well, the two things. Number one, Labour's very clear now on definitions of women, and Rachel Reeves made a very big speech recently just saying lots of sensible things about biology and identity. But you are right that the Labour Party shouldn't be scared to talk about cultural issues. So I agree that's a challenge.
Indeed. Now tell me, Daniel, in terms of bringing it back to the strikes and this government, do you think there's been a lot of criticism that the government should be at the table on these negotiations and they're not. Where do you stand on it?
It's really interesting, because Mick Lynch has been calling for the government to be, he's been saying, the government, I've got to meet the government, talk directly to the government. And then 2 minutes ago on the news, he was saying the government should keep out of it. So I don't even understand anymore what their position is. And the fact of the matter is, they should put the offer to their members in the ballot. And that's what they should be doing at the moment. And then we'd know what the members thought. But on this question, the fact is that there are two separate issues. The first is the government involved? Of course the government's involved, because they're the one who's actually paying for any settlement that ensues, and they're the ones who've told the railway companies what they can actually afford to pay. But the separate question is, should the unions be negotiating directly with the government? Now, the rail companies have got professional negotiators who negotiate with the rail unions. And of course, the rail unions, and this is true at TfL as well, one of the first things they want to do is to say, let's get round that. Let's see if we can get a better option by talking to somebody else and draw in the government generally, draw in the mayor, whoever it is, play them off against each other. And every mayor of London, every government is wise to that. And what they say is, yeah, we're involved, but we're not directly involved in the negotiations. And it's right that they should say that, because otherwise they're just opening themselves up to being played off by the unions, very clever guys, by the unions well, this guy said this guy said that, we'll play this off against you. And it's just to fall into their hands. So they should not be negotiating directly.
Do you agree with that?
No, I don't. I think that the British public are so disrupted by strike action, it's causing so many problems, they just don't really care about the detail of processes and procedures. They just want it sorted. And clearly there's been, I think, a message from early on that the government hasn't been involved enough. I mean, rule books go out the window when the country is in a state of crisis. We saw it in the pandemic and in other situations. And I think that, Grant Shapps I'm not sure he's the totally right man for this job, but let's see.
Well, no Labour government. We had a Labour government from 1997 to 2010, never negotiated directly with the unions in the course of strikes. Ken Livingstone, when he was Mayor of London, refused to negotiate directly with the unions. And as far as I know, Sadiq Khan hasn't done so either. Boris certainly didn't. Because these people understand that the job of negotiation is there for professional negotiators who deal with the unions, and there's no point them blundering in because they'll just get played.
Yeah, I think, and look, I defer to your very extensive experience doing some very, very good things in London, but the Labour government had daily links at all levels to the union movement, which this government doesn't.
That's the difference about negotiating strike in the course of a strike. Never did that.
Well, yeah.
But you say as well, though, that you think that in in times of crises, the rule book just gets ripped up and thrown out of the window. But actually, in times of crises, you need strong leadership. And surely you don't want a situation where anyone can kind of, demand, dictate, right, the government, you've got to now do this, you've now got to do that, you've now got to do this, because wouldn't that actually make the government look weak-willed?
Agreed, and that, to go back to that, is one of the reasons why Keir Starmer doesn't particularly want members of the shadow cabinet on picket lines. But the fact is that all the unions are trying to do is negotiate, decent conditions and decent pay rises for their membership. They're not trying to hold a government to ransom for nefarious reasons. And I just think it could have been done better. And if we want to get on to strong leadership, and where is, with all due respect, where has the Prime Minister been of late?
Well, and people make me laugh when they say, where has the Prime Minister been of late? Because where exactly do they expect him to be of late? Because everyone's done their absolute best to shove him out of office. All the Labour politicians couldn't wait to get rid of him. The media couldn't wait to get rid of him. Lots of his own backstabbing MPs couldn't wait to get rid of him. Now that they've got rid of him, they're all sitting there going, where is he? Well, where do you think he is? You got what you wanted, you got rid of him. And if I was him, I'd be there with my feet up on holiday as well.
But he's not finished yet, is he? I know you're upset. I thought you might have been over it, but...
I'm not upset. Well, actually, am I upset? I don't actually think it's appropriate that you can have almost like what I would call some kind of coup over an elected Prime Minister. I don't actually think it is appropriate at all.
What does Daniel think?
Yeah, what do you think?
I think it was a great mistake of the Conservative Party and a great injustice to get rid of Boris, especially in the way he did. 200 MPs voted a confidence vote in him only few weeks before, and 80 ministers, a minority of MPs. overturned that and sort of collapsed and panicked like a bunch of sheep going over the cliff. Now, you know, we're in the middle of a leadership election. We need to look forward because it's very important for the country that the Conservative Party defeats Keir Starmer in a couple of years' time. But I think it's a mistake. I think I've made that fairly clear.
Look, that's quite...
Made the task more difficult, shall we say?
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about this. I don't actually think it was appropriate, some of the stuff that's gone on. And I do actually look at the way that the media, a lot of the media now, are trying to manipulate things in terms of this leadership election going forward as well. And I don't like it. I think the media get a little bit ahead of themselves sometimes. And yes, I am aware that I say this with my backside on a chair sitting in the media, but I do sometimes, I think the media could do with having a long, hard look at itself, so I do. Right, going to take a quick break. When I come back, I'll have some of your thoughts on that. Your comment, by the way, about Keir Starmer's dad and the factory, that's got people talking a lot, because Matthew says, it really frustrates me, Michelle, when people say that they're working class just because perhaps maybe their dad is, when now they've gone off, they might become a solicitor, etc. Someone else is saying Keir Starmer is not working class. His dad owned the factory, didn't work in it. So what are you all talking about? What is working class? I mean, I always ask this. I do ponder it often. And if your dad was working class and you've gone on to, I don't know, be a solicitor, does that mean that you're not working class anymore? I don't know. You tell me. Kevin's nodding his head. But I'm not sure. I think working class is something that's inside you. And by the way, I know that the break music is playing, so I've got to shut up. But I do think working class is something that's inside you. It's a set of values. It's an outlook, a mindset. And I don't think it ever leaves you, irrespective of what your earnings may become in the future. But I'll respect the music that's playing, I'll shut my mouth and I'll go to a break, and I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello there, welcome back to Dewbs & Co with me, Michelle Dewberry, keeping me company until 7 o'clock tonight. We've got my panel, the former advisor to Boris Johnson, now Tory life peer in the House of Lords, Daniel Moylan, and the former Labour councillor and now CEO of PLMR, Kevin Craig. Lots of you guys getting in touch. That whole conversation about what is working class and what isn't has really struck a chord with you guys. Lots of you are summarising it by saying, if you go to work, you're working class, end of story. Let me ask you this then. If a CEO of, I don't know, a big FTSE 100 company, he goes to work or she goes to work, they earn many, many millions of pounds, are they working class? There you go, you can ponder that one. Lots of people, by the way, are saying that too much now, the strikes affecting people too much. Are you still in support of the strikes that are happening? Get in touch, let me know. Now, moving on, tomorrow night here, GB News, we are going to be hosting the latest round of the Tory leadership hustings in Manchester from 7 o'clock. Of course, Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak, they'll be going head-to-head, setting out their vision for the North West. Exciting stuff.
There's just 2 weeks left of voting in the battle to become Britain's next Prime Minister. Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak have been dashing around the country, and tomorrow night they make their pitches to Conservative voters in the heart of Labour-run Manchester. But do either of them have what it takes to defend and maintain Boris Johnson's mighty majority? GB News is proud to be hosting the Conservative hustings in Manchester, live and exclusive from 7 p.m. GB News, the People's Channel.
I shall be watching that. And I'll tell you what as well, I really wouldn't mind Rishi Sunak doing what Liz Truss did a week or so ago. Do you remember, did you watch when we went up to Lee? We did Liz Truss in what I would call a working man's club. I very much enjoyed that. I would like to see Rishi Sunak do the same. Did you see, by the way, I don't know what's the matter with some people, because Rishi Sunak, you all might have seen this actually. I'm going off topic here, but I just want to talk about it anyway. Rishi Sunak, he was criticised at a petrol station, perhaps pretending to fill up a car or whatever it was. The latest thing was he did a posting of him at a McDonald's with a contactless payment saying that he'd nailed it. Everyone was very quick to point out that actually that's not the contactless screen, you know, move on. And then he was questioned, asked about what is his favourite McDonald's. And he turned around and he said, oh, whenever I go, I get the breakfast roll. But the breakfast roll stopped about 2 years ago or so it was at the start of COVID. And I don't understand it. I don't understand why people trip themselves up in this way. If you don't go to McDonald's, why would you just say, I don't go to McDonald's?
Do you think he might be worried about the fact that his current status is part of a hugely wealthy family and he wants to emphasise he's got the common touch credentials?
Well, if you want to emphasise you've got the common touch credentials, get yourself on a bar stool in a working man's club and come and talk to us at GB News. That'd sort it out.
I'd come and watch that. That'd be such fun. But,
yes,
you know,
it would.
It's this question of authenticity, isn't it? And
yeah.
just to go back to our old friend Boris, who we were discussing earlier. Of course, Boris didn't pretend. That was one of the persuasive things about Boris. So every Prime Minister pretends they're interested in football. And David Cameron was so interested in football, if you remember, he couldn't tell the difference between West Ham and Aston Villa because they've got the same strip. But Boris has never pretended to be interested in football. He's never gone there. But nobody's criticised him for that. Nobody said, you really got to pretend you're interested in football. They like the fact that he comes across as himself. And
just be authentic.
He's interested in other sports, but he's not interested in football.
My favourite sports memory of Boris Johnson, I've just got it flashed up into my mind now, was when he
crushing the
the small child,
the Japanese child.
When he took it very seriously and took down the kid when he was playing rugby. Anyway, you are a Tory party member. Have you voted?
I haven't, but I thought you'd like to know. I brought my ballot paper with me.
Oh, did
I've
you?
been thinking who to vote for, and I've decided that I am going to vote for Liz Truss.
Oh, are you?
I'm going to vote for Liz Truss because I find Rishi's economic policies have changed so much I don't even understand what he's talking about.
Oh.
And at least Liz makes some sort of... She stuck to her last. Let's see if it works.
So this is your ballot paper?
This is my ballot paper.
Don't put your address there, will you?
No, my address isn't on it, and I've hidden the security codes on the back, so but that part I think is OK.
Right.
And now you're going to watch me. You're saying, watch here, Michelle.
Put
Vote
your X
here.
Oh, he's got a fountain pen, ladies and gentlemen.
No, I've brought a special pen for a special...
Where's your address?
A special pen for a special moment, don't worry.
OK.
And I've got an envelope, so everyone can see, right? Anybody interested? Got it?
There it is.
Right. And here we have the envelope.
Let me just have a little look, because I've got to say, I'm not a Tory member. I'm not going to do your address. There you go. It is an offence to vote more than once. Any member who attempts to do so will have their membership of the party withdrawn. You've not voted previously, have you?
No, I haven't. No.
Checking that there's no rule breaking going on.
That's my only ballot paper. That goes in there. And I have even brought with me, because I thought this would please you, I brought a first-class stamp.
First-class stamp.
And that will be going in the post on the way home.
Oh, hey, ladies and gentlemen, that could be the decider.
That could be the decider.
Yes.
But I think, from what everyone says, it won't be the decider.
It won't, will it?
Well, you never know.
This race, come on.
But it will get there on time.
Number one, Daniel, thank you for what you've done. The service to your country and Labour's chances at the next election are immeasurably enhanced. So thank you. On the second point, this race is over. I mean, you know, Liz Truss is going to win this by a country mile. And at least, you know, it will be an energetic and hotly contested general election now, and I think let's see what comes of it. But it's I think Rishi never really got going.
Do you think they'll replace Keir in the next few months?
Absolutely
They're
not.
certainly talking about it.
Who?
All the
Who
rumours.
are you talking
well,
to?
it's all the political journalists.
You go
saying,
hunting.
You know,
I've
the
heard,
Labour.
Daniel, you're a lovely man. You go hunting lefties in Yorkshire for fun. Yes, you do.
Do you?
Yes, it does.
The Labour front bit. I fight socialism wherever I see it, Michelle. That's my job. The Labour front benchers are all so disillusioned with Keir. I'd be surprised if he lasted till Christmas.
Honestly, Daniel, I mean, I think you've done great things in public life, as I've said to you. But I don't know who you're talking to.
Very
there.
kind.
I don't know who you're talking to there.
Well, I've got to be honest, I am being told off because I wasn't actually supposed to be talking about Tory leadership, but I couldn't help myself. I was supposed to be talking about universities. So I'll cut to the chase. Today, it's A-level results day. More young people than ever going to university. Same old, we get the gist. I'll pick with you, Daniel. University. Is it... I always worry that it's a bit made too much of a thing. You've got to go to university, kids, go to university, go to university. And that doesn't wash with me. I think university's got a place if you want to be a brain surgeon, etc. But for everyone else, I would say don't worry about it. Where are you?
Well, first I want to say congratulations to all the people, all the young people.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that nice bit.
Today,
Yes, oops, sorry. Forgot that nice bit.
They have all worked hard. And I wish them well and happiness, and I hope they got the results that they...
Oh, you're so nice. I'm just trying to get to the chase.
Yeah, you get to the chase. The chase is three quick answers. First is it worth it in financial terms? Probably the way things are with loans. For some people, very small number of people, yes. The majority of people, it probably isn't worth it as a financial investment. Second thing, is it worth it from a personal development point of view? For many people, the answer is yes, and it makes them a better and more rounded person, but it does depend on the right course, the right atmosphere. And if it's just going to be stuffed with gender stuff and safe spaces the whole time, it probably isn't going to do you a great deal of good. The third thing is it good for the country as a whole? And it is good for the country as a whole that we have an educated workforce. And in general, the more educated, the better. The trouble is, that's good for the country, but it isn't always good for the people involved because they don't always get the jobs that they're qualified for. But it's better for us as a country and economy to have that reserve of educated people we can draw on. That's a bit, you could say that's a bit sort of inhumane to talk about it that way, but it is an important point that we have an educated population.
Kevin?
I think Daniel talks a lot of sense. I do know that you can also achieve amazing things in life without a degree. You're a living example of that, and you're very passionate.
You can end up on GBNews, everybody.
Well,
there you go.
The sky is the limit, right? So you don't have to have it.
So GBNews is the limit.
But very
yes,
good.
Yes, well
very
done.
Good.
Yes.
The man's on fire.
Yes,
today, right?
well done, Daniel.
But basically, I've seen thousands of CVs over the years as an employer and as a business person, and I am much more interested in the extracurricular other stuff in addition to the grades in the university. I think, as Daniel said, it can be fantastic for your personal development. I went from a South London council estate to be the neighbour at uni of Digby from Eton, right? Wow. And it was joyous. It was a joyous coming together of a non-sexual sense in terms of life enriching and understanding your country more. But I also have wonderful colleagues in the company, outstanding young women who are apprentices. And they are the best. Lucy Summers, just amazing young people who didn't need to go to uni.
Let me ask you this, though, as an employer, so you will see a lot of CVs and stuff. Do you put a degree requirement on your job specifications? Do you use it as a filtering mechanism when you're looking at applicants or not?
I think for many jobs it is listed as a requirement, but we are also very open. We've made some amazing hires, apprentices who've gone on to be high-earning, highly successful consultants. And I'd have to check, actually, is it on every job as a requirement? Yeah,
because the reason I ask that is this is one of my bugbears in life, because I think what's happened with so many employers, and by the way, I'm not talking about a specialist industry, a brain surgeon, whatever, I'm not talking about that, I'm talking about more generalist. I think what's happened is that employers just put a degree as standard now. They don't even think about it. They say that we want applicants that have got a 2-1 or whatever it is, a FES or whatever that is, and they use it only as a filtering tool. And I think it's so wrong for a few reasons. Primarily, it devalues a degree, because if everyone's got one of these things, then where's the value in it anyway? It completely excludes people that have got something about them, that have taken a different route in life. And I just think it's very unfair. And I think as an employer, it's a silly thing to do, because so many people, they go to university, yes, they've got a 2-1 or whatever, but they're also a little bit gormless. They've not got anything about them. They're just sat in a classroom.
Yes, I mean, I've definitely had a few former colleagues who would be described like that, for sure. I mean, generally, a high level of literacy, writing skills, cultural education awareness can really help in my industry. But I do agree with you that you do risk missing out on talent if you make that the only arbiter of your choices.
Yeah, huge talent. And Daniel, do you think there's a snobbery around things like apprenticeships still or not?
I think there, to be honest and perfectly frank, there shouldn't be, but I think there is to some extent, and I think it's very sad and unfortunate, and we should work to try and make sure that stops. Now, the new T-levels that are now coming through the first time today, because they started 2 years ago, getting results for the first time today, I think should be really driven forward as a means of trying to eliminate that sort of snobbery, because you know, there are all sorts of different people with different skills, and we need to try and match their aptitude and their interests to a decent education for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I just say something in support of that? Because we did a very big report last week with a number of education organisations, including TeachTap, and it found out that teachers want more assistance in telling kids and students about the potential for apprenticeships. So the evidence is there.
But what does that mean? What assistance do you need to tell someone about an apprenticeship?
More information about what's available, and more, general government policy that encourages it and clearly communicates that university is not the only route to success.
Yeah, no, it really isn't. And Daniel was very polite at the start of this topic, and he congratulated everyone that's got the results that they wanted today, good results. But I would just add to that and say, actually, if you didn't get your results, or if your kid didn't get your results, your grandkid didn't get the results, tell them from me, and I feel this very passionately, not to worry so much. It will feel like the end of the world if you didn't get, I don't know what it is, A+, A's, B's, whatever it is that you want. It'll feel like the end of the world, and I assure you it is not. There is way more in life than just going to universities and all the rest of it. You can achieve anything, you can have anything, be anything, do anything, without having to just follow the route that society often dictates that you should. I did an apprenticeship when I was 17, largely because no one would employ me, really, because I had no qualifications and not a great attitude. But it was the best thing I ever did. Honestly, I owe all my career success to that apprenticeship, age 17.
Wow.
I did it with Central Ambulance, if you're interested.
Was it a fair comment about your attitude at the time?
Oh, my attitude at the time was absolutely appalling. I didn't really even go to school. I didn't like authority, didn't like being told what to do, didn't sit in the classroom, didn't pay attention. I just wanted to go out and earn some money. And you earn a little bit of money. That's one of the reasons I think there's a snobbery about apprenticeships, because you don't get a great wage. But what I would say is you can take that starting salary and you can propel yourself. I've always out-earned my friends with a degree.
Well, you have. I mean, you are not. Obviously, you are a particular case, Michelle. But statistically now, the good news is apprenticeships are increasingly well paid.
Brilliant. And also, to the point, by the way, about just sticking a degree on a job ad, if you are an employer, I would urge you all to look at the job ads that you put out there. Do you just put at the bottom of your thing as standard, a degree needed? If you do, why? Ask yourself that question, because I assure you, by doing so, you'll be missing out on some marvellous talent, so you will. Right, it's going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'll be sharing some of your thoughts, and I'll be asking the question, whose responsibility do you think it is to help the people that are going to be struggling the most in society? I ask this because one of the supermarkets, Iceland to be specific, they are now offering zero interest loans to customers to be able to buy their food. I mean, some say it's a great thing, some say it's ludicrous, but it got me thinking, whose job is it to help the most vulnerable in society? You tell me, and I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Coming up on Dan Wootton Tonight, will leadership frontrunner Liz Truss be able to deliver opportunity equality across the UK? Levelling Up Minister Paul Scully explains why he's backing Truss for PM. As the majority of Brits say enough to the censorship of classic movies and TV shows, Hello Hello's Vicky Michelle leads the resistance against wokery and celebrates the iconic sitcom's 40th anniversary. Plus, there's big opinion from political commentator Richard Taylor, Anne Widdecombe, and my superstar panel, top Daily Mail columnist Sarah Vine, conservative commentator Dominique Samuels, and author and broadcaster Amy Nicol. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursday, from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness, brilliant.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, welcome back to Dewbs & Co with me, Michelle Dewberry, keeping me company. We've got former advisor to Boris Johnson, now Tory Life peer in the House of Lords, Daniel Moylan, and former Labour councillor and CEO of PLMR, Kevin Craig. Now, I tell you, when I was in the break a second ago, I put a question to Lord Moylan that comes up every time I get someone from the House of Lords on the show. I always get asked the same question. Can you ask that Lord, is the daily allowance in the House of Lords tax-free?
Yeah, it's not subject to income tax. And if it was subject to income tax, it would probably have to be put up to make it.
£332.
It's currently £332. I mean, you can choose whether to claim it, or you can claim a half rate, or you can claim zero. And it's only available on days when the House of Lords is sitting, which is about 150 odd days a year. and it's only available if you are present and take part in some defined parliamentary business. But if you do claim it, it is tax-free. And I think the reason for that is that the Inland Revenue finds it hard to know how to tax it, because it's not an employment. You're not employed. It's not a self-employment. You don't hold an office.
See, I've got to be honest.
Ministers in the House of Lords who get a salary, they have to pay tax because they're on a salary. So they pay tax as anybody else would on their salary.
See, I've got to be honest. I am a business person. I like profit. I want us to be in a capitalist society. But there's something about that, and I'm not having to go at you, by the way. I'm just asking you because I know it always comes up, and I'm intrigued, and I never remember to ask the question, so I thought since I've got you, I would. But I actually find that, I think disgraceful is a bit extreme, but I find that quite unfair, and I know there'll be a lot of people sitting there today saying this is one of the things that's wrong with society. There's such an us and them kind of difference. People watching this programme, they'll be grafting and then they'll be taxed, understandably, on what they earn. So when they see how many people's in the House of Lords, is it 650? Is it something like that?
Well, technically they're about 750. But
750?
Many of them don't attend or attend very little. The point about the House of Lords is it's a part-time house. And a lot of people, some people do it fairly full-time, the way I do. But the majority of peers turn up when they've got something to contribute or when they've got something to do. We have a lot of doctors, we have vets, we have the heads of nursing organisations, we have judges, whatever. And sometimes they come in for stuff they really know about and contribute their expertise, but they wouldn't come in for other stuff. So you need a system where you're not paid a salary, but you do get some compensation for actually turning up and working. And because unless you want to make it just for the rich, people who can afford to live without any income, then you need to pay something. So having this flexibility about it. Now, why it's not taxable, I think, is this peculiar legal reason. But I would say that if it was taxable, I think, it would have to be, it's set at a rate, put it this way, it's set at a rate that takes account of the fact that it's not taxable.
Wow. OK. I mean, and I do respect your openness there as well, because this is not on the agenda to talk about, and I know I've just gone off topic. But I think a lot of people will find that quite unfair. I'm not going to be a hypocrite, by the way, because if anyone wants to appoint me to the House of Lords, I'll be there like a rat up a drain pipe collecting my £332. So I'm not going to lie, I will definitely be taking most of it. But it does feel a little bit unfair. I'm sure you'll let me know your thoughts about that. Anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent. Let me get back on track. The thing that we are supposed to be talking about today is the vulnerable in society. When it comes to helping them, whose job is it? I've got to say, I am passionate about a small government. I don't want the government sticking their fingers into absolutely everything. I want them to do as little as possible. But of course, we need a welfare state. We need it to help those people that are struggling. But where does the responsibility kind of start and end, Kevin? I mean, is it just the government? I saw Iceland, they've created this new loan scheme, interest-free loans. You get these this credit loaded onto these cards. Part of me thinks, yes, that's great. Another part of me just thinks, well, why don't you just lower your prices then so people don't need to take loans out to buy the chicken? And then I think, what about us as a collective society? Why don't we do more to help people that are struggling? Where do you stand on it?
Well, I think it's a combination. The government, the state, I believe we don't spend enough money on public services generally. I don't believe the tax take is sufficient. That's one discussion. Individuals, yes, I do believe we have responsibilities where we can. I think broadly, the more money you have in life, I think more happiness will come from it. Yes, sort yourself out with whatever your material desires are once you're comfortable, but I think genuine happiness comes from if you can help others where you can. And business, where we might disagree as a panel, I think has a huge role, right? In modern society where there's more transparency around profits, and companies are more accountable than ever, I think business has a massive role to play. I like what Iceland are doing. I think they're really interesting as a business because there's no limit on profit, right? I, like you, am fully signed up that capitalism is the best way that society has to organise itself in the course of human history. But we've talked before on this show, there's no statute on profit, what is reasonable and what is not. And I love it when I see businesses getting involved more broadly than the mere basic level that they are asked to do by statute.
Yeah, and I saw a collection of Labour voices today. It was calling on things like price caps in supermarkets. What do you think to that?
Well, I think price caps is taking it to another level, and I'm not sure that's the road I want. I don't feel that the supermarkets are the sector with a huge issue about what is respectable, reasonable profit. Energy, a different area.
Daniel, where do you stand on it?
Well, I disagree, I'm afraid. I mean, I don't want to criticise Iceland particularly, because I'm sure the people who've developed this scheme are very well motivated, so I don't make critical comments about them. But I think the general idea of spreading that businesses have the job of looking after us and doing social services for us is a very dangerous one, actually, for two reasons. First of all, it distracts from their main focus, and their main focus is to maximise profit, to create prosperity, so we've got jobs. And there is a limit on profit. There are limits, first of all, on the legal framework with which businesses can operate, and that's very properly set by Parliament and government. It says you can do these things, you can't do those things. And your chicken, if it's chicken, has got to be of a certain standard, and you've got to do this and whatever. So that's the first thing, and the second thing is there are limits on profit. Of course there are, but through competition. Iceland can't just set prices the way it wants to set prices. There are other places to go if they set the prices too high. And there's competition driving it. So there are limits on profit, and the idea that you can just make as much money as you want and don't care about society, that's wrong. You should be focused on that. The second reason, so I think it's harming our economy, the second reason is that once you become a dependent, once you start relying on money from other people, you open yourself up to being told to do what to do by those other people. We all know the idea of charities where, the old-fashioned idea of charity for the deserving poor because they comply with what... Well, now we're going to have to... We run in danger of, charity for the deserving poor from companies who might well be deciding, oh, well, we don't want sort of people who have particular views or whatever it might be, and so on. They shouldn't have that degree of power over us. Now, I'm not giving specific examples. I can't think of any, to be frank, and I'm not criticising Iceland directly. But the whole idea that we should be dependent for charity on companies, larding it out from their profits, much of which is for the purpose of promoting themselves, as an advertising or a marketing thing, and then expose ourselves to the danger that we have to comply with their values, their ethics, and so on, in order to carry on receiving the money. That's wrong. They shouldn't be doing that.
Because there is a part of me, and I am a capitalist, I do admit that, but there is a part of me that thinks if you're a supermarket and you've got to the point where, because we're not talking about luxury goods, we're talking about someone eating food. Yeah. If you're a supermarket and you're talking about, look, I'm going to give you this loan, it is interest-free, by the way, and you have to pay it back in £10 increments, and you've got to qualify for the loan as well. They don't just give it to anyone, you've got to be able to pay it back. But then I think if I was the CEO of that business, I'd probably look at my prices and say, is there something I could do to help people? Someone just emailed me in and said supermarkets are doing things like a 10% pensioner discount or whatever it is. But I'd probably be looking at, is there ways or are there ways that I could do things with my own profits to help people?
Well, I think Iceland in particular are a brand that already, I think to be fair to them, do that very competitive pricing you've talked about. What this is an example of is a company using the power of the balance sheet and its assets to try and do good. And I respectfully don't disagree I don't agree rather with Daniel's worries about what it means and companies trying to get us to behave in a certain way. Essentially, consumers and people generally in this country are facing, as we all know, an incredibly tough time. Money is so tight. And if a business, while still making money, still making profits, is finding the time to think about how it can also do some good, I'm all up for that. And I don't think we should worry too much. I think it can only help as part of the mix of how can this country be the best it can be.
Can you only spend the money in their shop?
Yes, it's like it's almost like a prepaid. You don't get the money, you get a card with it loaded on.
It's like the old truck shops that, in mining and other villages where there's only one shop and you had to buy from. I think it's wrong. There are these very small loans. There's a pattern about very small loans in developing countries where there are banks that have shown that if you make very small loans, especially to women in developing countries, They're very good credit risk because if you invest in a business, they set something up. It might be, a small loom or something doing some weaving, and the bank gets the money back. I'd be much happier if they were actually saying to people, rather than here's some money to buy our produce, you can pay it back later. They were actually saying, here are some small loans to help you set up and try to make some money and actually get a new aspect to your life where you can do some work, maybe at home or whatever, and make a small profit. That's just a thought off the top of my head, and actually help people get on. But the idea that here's, I'm not comfortable. Not comfortable, Michelle, as you can hear.
I can hear that you're not comfortable, and I've just heard in my own ear as well that I've only got 30 seconds left, which is a real shame because I had a great idea that I wanted to share with you all, a little business idea. Well, it wasn't a business idea, it was a charity idea about a little idea that we could all do to help each other. But guess what? I ran out of time, so you'll have to tune in a different day if you want that. Some of you guys, by the way, you're a harsh bunch. Carol said, this is all designed to help school holiday bills. Don't have kids if you can't afford them. Simple, if I lose my job, who's going to feed my cat? Not you. Ooh, harsh. Lots of love for the panel tonight as well, Steve. Likes the fact you've been respectful of each other. I'll end it on that note.
Panel, your A grade.
I did. All right, I've got to go. I'm in trouble. Right. Thank you very much for your company. Thank you for your company at home. Nigel Farage up at 7. Nigel, what have you got for us? No, there's no.
Hello again, Aidan McGivern here with the latest forecast from the Met Office. Showers for many over the next 24 hours, widely across the UK overnight, and then clear spells away from the showers and turning drier across southern areas by early Friday. Now, a weather front is currently crossing the UK. That's brought cloud and some rain to places during the day, and well, that does tend to sink southeast overnight.